What's up, everybody? Paul here from the Hoops Crew, and it is 11 p.m. Night one of the draft is over. I've played a game of basketball. I've caught up on everything that's gone on in the meantime, some of the picks that I missed. It's been a really fascinating night. And of course, the real excitement and intrigue sparked and took off in the time that I spent playing a match. We won, by the way. But I want to talk through everything that has played out in night one of the draft here. There's quite a few talking points that I want to discuss. And then, of course, I want to cast an eye to tomorrow night and what is going to happen big picture, but also what we can perhaps expect and hope for from the Geelong Football Club going into night two of the draft, which we will stream live on the Hoops Crew's YouTube channel. So please come along and join me when we do so. We're going to talk all about what the Cats are up to on night two, as well as the myriad of other players that are going to be picked up and what some of the other clubs are doing, how some things kind of fit in line with some perceived strategies and deficiencies that some of the clubs may have going forward. Tonight, of course, there's quite a lot to go through. And so I want to pick through some of the different players, some of the different trades that went on, how bloated the first round got, and more. But first, a word from our sponsor.
The Hoops Crew Media Network is proudly sponsored by Cyril, Cooke, Florist, established in Geelong since 1915. Visit their website at www.cyrilcookeflorist.com.au. That's Cook with an E. Give them a call on 035 222 2244 or mention the Hoops Crew to get yourself 20% off your next in-store purchase when you visit them at Shop 12, 11 Leather Street in Breakwater.
So let's get into night one of the draft. And as we'll see, as I project what things look like, it was very much what you would expect from a modern draft. It was the midfielder show. It's just like the Brownlow, it was the midfielder show. And so you can see that the first 9 picks, all midfielders. And then there's still quite a few afterwards, but it's not until after that point where we finally start to see some key position players, be them defenders or forwards, coming into play. And so Sam Lalor was widely considered not necessarily to be the best player in the draft, but certainly the one that Richmond was most interested in. Shares a lot of qualities with Dusty from all reports, and he became pick 1. Congratulations to Sam Lalor as that recipient of that kind of honor. It's quite prestigious to be the number 1 draft pick, and he's got plenty of talent. I've seen plenty of footage and shit. Like, he's going to be a wonderful player. And honestly, you could have thrown a blanket over the top half a dozen and made a pretty reasonable argument for all of them to be pick 1, perhaps depending on who the club was that was going to have pick 1 in the draft. Richmond had it. Sam Lalor was who they picked. From there, like I said, the top half a dozen could have thrown a blanket over all of them. So that's where we start talking about Finn O'Sullivan, Jager Smith, Sid Draper, Levi Ashcroft, and Harvey Langford, all of whom were kind of in that top 6. And, it could have all made an argument for pick 1. The one I want to discuss and the one I'm going to break out in a dedicated Enough of the Week video, because we haven't done one of those in a while. So stay tuned for this one. And my thoughts on Levi Ashcroft, and specifically thoughts directed towards Richmond, North, Carlton, and Adelaide, all who had a pick before Richmond. Before Brisbane. Before Melbourne, I should say, who ultimately made the bid. I do not understand why we are in a cutthroat industry. And some of these teams, let's say Carlton in particular, who have they've got a case to make to be premiers in 2025. They've got a great team, and if all things kind of come together, there's no reason why they can't seriously contest the flag in 2025. Why would they allow Brisbane, the reigning premier, current premier? They haven't. Can we call them reigning? Yeah, they're the reigning premier. The new season hasn't started yet, but they are the reigning premier. Why they would allow them to get Levi Ashcroft for cheaper is completely beyond me. When you know that the competing club here has loaded up on picks in order to be able to match any bid that comes their way, why would you not, and I'm directing this specifically at Richmond to begin with, why would you not pick the guy with pick 1 and make that opposition team pay the premium, the highest possible price? And I say this, and Geelong at some point will find themselves in a position where we've got a father-son or academies or any of those sorts of things, and we'll have to, but I would expect us to pay the premium as well. The price is already going to go up next year for father-sons and academy picks anyway. Make the clubs pay what the players are worth. And I don't understand why Richmond, North Melbourne, Carlton, and Adelaide refuse to make a bid on Levi Ashcroft. Thank you, Melbourne, for doing it. Because we knew what was going to happen. Of course, they were going to compete it. He was always going to Brisbane. There's even at pick 1, Brisbane would have matched it. But make him pay the premium. I just don't understand it. Moving on from that, though, Josh Smiley, big-bodied, 195-centimetre mid. That's a huge asset. That Richmond loaded up with midfielders in their first 3 picks. St Kilda got involved, Toby Trevelyan, and then they... I don't understand why they didn't do it with pick 8 and rather waited for pick 9 to make a bid on Leonardo Lombard. Leonardo Lombard. Don't know why they didn't do it with pick 8. Because again, make the clubs pay what they're worth. Same with Isaac Kako for slipping down to pick 13. Why aren't the clubs making these bids earlier? Make the clubs pay the premium. Essendon's dodged a bullet here. They hardly had anything to work with in the draft anyway. They put all their chips in for Kako. They were going to get him, but push those future picks out, like those later picks in the draft out. Push them out. Like, give them nothing. We are not nearly cutthroat. We are far too kind in this space. Make the clubs pay the premium. Anyway, Alex Taru, a brilliant player. I've seen plenty of footage of him over the course of the year. He's also got the best nickname in the draft, the Flying Viking, picked up by St Kilda. St Kilda did very well with those 2 picks they actually made. Again, I don't understand why they didn't. If they were already, if they made a bid on Lombard, why they didn't make one for Kako as well, just to flush out the Bombers. It's beyond me. But anyway, here we are. Xavier Lindsay from the Ds. And then it's from this point where things started to get a bit of interesting. The top 10 or 11, and there was some little shuffles there around that 8 to 11 sort of ballpark. But the top 11 or so, even to a lesser degree 12, mostly as predicted. But it was from kind of 12 onwards where things started to get a little bit funny. Taj Houghton was a bolter. Jonty Fall was a massive bolter. Well, not a massive bolter. He pushed up about 10 picks, where most experts and those who've been really studying this have been talking about him being mid to late 20s. He bolted. Joe Berry and Bo Allen I want to talk about, because that was a really fascinating transaction. I did receive some tweets asking me about this one. Of course, I hadn't seen it at the time. I was midway through a basketball match and kind of trying to catch up on everything. The last pick I saw was Isaac Kako, and then I had to play a game of basketball. So I kind of missed the fallout of what came afterwards. There's been a lot of questions about why Port would transact like this. What I like about it is that West Coast has played the game. Port Adelaide has been forced to play the game. How do I want to go? This is a competitive business, and we want teams to be ruthless and cutthroat about it. And what I'm gathering here, keeping in mind that Fremantle was also picked 17, and so there's the temptation, there's multiple clubs, similar sort of logistical thing, that are playing a game here and chasing the same sorts of players. And Bo Allen is the central piece to this because he's a Western Australian. He was the top Western Australian player in the draft, from all reports. The thing about that transaction is and you can see it here, that we had, Port ultimately picked before West Coast. That wasn't the case. The transaction occurred that West Coast dropped from pick 15 to pick 16, but also scored pick 45 in the process. Now, I don't know if that's being represented now. It is. I think some other stuff's been soaked up because of academy stuff later. So that's now pushed up a smidge as well. But they flushed out Port Adelaide's pick 45. So they've gotten back into the draft. They got pick 30 and then will return for pick 44. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been seen until pick 68. So they've got themselves another pick, early third round here. Very smart from West Coast's thing. And I'm guessing what they've done is they've painted a narrative for Port that maybe they weren't going to go for Bo Allen. Maybe they were going to go for Joe Berry. And Port Adelaide's panicked and smashed the panic button and transacted. And I think it's really wise. It's clever play from West Coast. So good on them. And then ultimately they've picked up who they wanted to pick up. The number 1 player from WA, they've scored with pick 16. Very clever from West Coast, and Port Adelaide, they fell for it. And I think that's brilliant. Or No, they fell for it. They fell for it. And that's fine. They got the player they wanted at the end of the day, and they didn't give up a massive amount. But where does Port feature? So we'll see them at pick 33. And not till pick 94 at that point, unless I missed something in my scrolling. So like they're losing out on another quality player here. Like they've oh no, hang on, sorry, they're pick 33 and pick 38. They've fallen for their bluff. They're going to get some good players out of this draft, but then they'll go missing for a bit, and they could have gotten another one. But anyway, it is what it is. I think ultimately both clubs walk away happy. Port got the player they want. West Coast has scored themselves another pick of someone who's going to be pretty decent, I'd imagine. Well done. From there, again, things continue to get a little bit interesting in this period. Murphy Reed was kind of projected for that sort of ballpark. Oliver Hannaford and Harrison Oliver. There's some some bolters in here. Cooper Hines was about as predicted. Luke Traynor, key defender, going to Richmond. Richmond again, very very wise. Lots of midfielders, and then they started stocking up from there. So key forward, key defender, key forward. Very clever. They've kind of built out the core of the spine now for another 10 years in one single draft. As I skim through this, the rest of it is all relatively straightforward, though. Again, we must discuss Matt Whitlock. This will be one of the biggest talking points of the draft. Matt Whitlock, firstly, was the lesser favoured of the two twins. Jack Whitlock is the other that's coming through, and he was both were kind of expected to go in round one, but Jack was expected to probably be somewhere in the teens. He didn't go. He's a key forward. Matt is kind of key forward, key defender, a bit more versatile. And maybe that's what appealed to North Melbourne. They can kind of use him in either way. But North traded their first round pick for next year to get this pick 27 from Richmond to then make that pick for Matt Whitlock. So I think this is a very smart move from Richmond. North will improve next year, undoubtedly. But are they going to go from second last to top 8? Probably not. You'd probably expect them to maybe jump 3-4 spots on the ladder, and they maybe they sit 12th. And so Richmond have given away essentially pick 27 in this draft for maybe pick 6, and that's assuming North improves like we kind of hope and expect they might. Pick 6 next year, and I know next year doesn't run as deep as this year's, but pick 6 is pretty good in most drafts. So if Richmond walks away also going, look, we've kind of got what we want from this draft. We've hit our key forwards. We've hit our key defenders. We've got a stack of amazing midfielders. Why not? And then we can kind of reassess where we're at next year and go again with a pick 5, 6, 7, something like that. Very, very smart from Richmond. But North, again, they got a player they want. And the Whitlocks are brilliant. They're excellent players. And I'm really fascinated to see who goes for Jack tomorrow night. But that then concludes round one. Sam Marshall being another academy pick. The rest of these, there were some bolters within that for sure. And it was a bit more interesting. I think there was a lot of people who'd kind of thought the top 30 was mostly pretty settled. They were going to kind of move and shake within that space, but there's some that's come from way outside the top 30 to feature in this one, and others that were in that top 30 fall out. So it's a really fascinating state that we're in right now. And I'm keen to see more of it tomorrow night, of course. From here, I wanted to now kind of cast an eye to tomorrow night, and some of the players that I'm feeling are there and right for the picking. And there are a few. So obviously we just spoke about Matt Whitlock. Jack Whitlock is his brother, who again was kind of the more fancied of the two. Another key forward that's available there. Shanahan is also another key forward that's available there. Alex Dodson, who we spoke about in a video the other day, with Geelong kind of showing a lot of interest and potentially wanting to trade in. So it's this window here, and I think the Western Bulldogs' pick. Other clubs have got 24 hours to kind of work out what Richmond wants to do, and maybe Richmond's even willing to transact again. But they've got 24 hours to work out what Richmond wants to do. If they can work that out, and there's always scuttlebutt, there's always lots of talk. If they can work out what they're going to do, well, then you start to talk to the Dogs and go, okay, so we know we can factor out, and let's say hypothetically, Jack Whitlock. Okay, Dogs, how do we get your pick here so that we can go after a Shanahan or a Dodson or some other priority? This is where, like, this range here, you pick 30 through to 35, 36. This is the window where Geelong and some of the other clubs who are kind of showing interest in trading up early and potentially offering some picks, that's where they can get involved. And I don't know that they'll necessarily have to offer the future first, similar to what the Roos have done in this particular case. The Dogs have had a first round pick, so you can work with them a little bit. They've also got one at pick 31 as well, so they're going to be flexible. I think you can work with them a little bit and maybe try and wrangle a pick out of them, whether it's 29 or 31. The Eagles as well will be feeling pretty good about themselves with what they've done with Bo Allen. Maybe you can transact with them a little bit. St Kilda have had a fantastic first night from their first 2 picks. Maybe you can work with them a little bit. Port, I suspect, aren't going to be wanting to talk to anyone considering what they've had to do so far. And then there's some clubs that are entering the draft for the first time, like Hawthorn, in around that pick 35, that probably won't transact on anything. But there's a range of really high quality, high caliber players that still need to be picked up. And we're talking key forwards. For Geelong, obviously the Dodson thing we've spoken about, but is someone like a Shanahan or a Jack Whitlock, are they going to be the sorts of players that, because they've slipped through, they're worth considering? Jeremy Cameron is north of 30, and whilst he's still brilliant and absolutely one of the most dynamic and dominant players in the competition, the clock is ticking. Shannon Neal is still developing, and hopefully 2025 is a huge breakout season for him, but he's still developing, and eventually it's going to be him, and then who? So maybe Geelong goes, we'll back in Toby Conway and Mitch Edwards for another year alongside Reece Stanley, and we'll go and chase a key position forward. It'll be interesting. We have obviously lost some key position forwards recently in Phoenix Foster, for example. So we don't have a lot of depth in that particular regard now. So maybe that's something they consider as well. It'll be a really fascinating second night. And what I highly encourage anyone to do, especially if you're tuning in here, you're a Geelong supporter mostly, please jump in tomorrow night when I get the live stream going. I'm expecting that to be up and running from about 7:30 as night 2's selections start to begin. I'm doing my son's bedtime and he stays up a little bit later, so I've got to try and get him in bed 7:30 and then dash in here to get the stream going. But expect me to be there and ready for round 2 of the draft, and we've got dozens of picks ahead of us. Some of these will disappear and get soaked up with academy stuff. Lots of there'll be passing and those sort of things. We're not going to be pushing it all the way out to pick 99, I'm sure. But the expectation from a lot of the experts is that there's probably another 40 to 50 players to be picked up tomorrow night. And so it's going to be a really fascinating time. Please tune in with me as we do so. And there'll be a lot more to discuss undoubtedly, let alone the fact that we are going to have some new Geelong Cats joining the football club tomorrow night. And that's really exciting as well. Thank you very much for checking out this video. Night 1 is a wrap. Stay tuned for more tomorrow. Stay tuned for a whole bunch more on the Hoops Cruise YouTube channel. If you haven't already checked it out, check out the Chap Shack Cats doing their AFLW season review. That is a brilliant piece of content. And of course, the girls, it wasn't the best season. It wasn't what we'd kind of hoped or expected from the girls this season, but they're going to rebuild. There's lots of thoughts. Go check out all the stuff that they're doing there. It's a great time. Make sure to check us out on socials at the Hoops Crew. You can find me at Paul James Games. And until next time, tomorrow night, live stream and probably a recap video afterwards. And then enough of the week talking about teams that didn't bid. Remain Geelong strong, and I'll see you later.